Alright, YouTube, we're back, of course, talking Final Fantasy IX Remake. We have a bit of an update on this game coming from NateTheHate, somebody we've talked about quite a bit here lately. In terms of when we can expect to see the game, and potentially it not releasing this year, which is just a big kick in the dick. He also updates us on the Tactics Remaster, which seems to be in a similar situation, so yet again, another kick. Obviously, as of right now, this is like insider information. Whether or not it's true remains to be seen, of course, grain of salt, all that dumb shit. But it is kind of nice to have something to talk about in regards to the 9 Remake, because we actually haven't had an update in a while, at least for us on the channel. We haven't talked about it since like September, I think was the last time we talked about it, which was Ryan from the Bronx giving us an update, who was previously Midori, who was previously, a guy pretending to be a Japanese girl. Pretty weird situation. But the main updates that he'd given us was that it was visually like comparable to the Memorial project and the development was complete, and that was as of September of last year. Also, they did say at the time that it was slated for a 2025 release, which obviously contradicts with what we're going to look at here from NateTheHate. This person says, "Hello, Mr. Hate. Appreciate all the Lord's work that you do. Just curious, heard anything about Final Fantasy IX Remake or Final Fantasy Tactics Remaster? Thank you." To which he replies, "Both remain in active development. Final Fantasy IX Remake isn't expected to see release in 2025. Maybe we'll see it launch in 2026. So with that response right there, he contradicts multiple things that Midori told us. I'm just going to call the guy Midori. From September of last year, because he says that the 9 Remake and the Tactics Remaster are both in active development, and as of September of last year, we had Midori saying that development was complete, which are very different things. For the two, I'm not really sure which one has like the overall better track record in terms of like their information being correct. I know Midori was pretty reliable at one point, but I think as time's gone on, like their info's either been just completely wrong, or maybe they had terrible sources or whatever, but a lot of things they've said haven't come true in recent times. Plus, like the Ryan from the Bronx account's gone, so just guy disappeared again. I do lean in favor of Nate's information more, especially these days, because a lot of people look to him for info, and he seems to be a pretty credible source. Also, it's the most recent information. It also contradicts Midori's info in saying that the 9 Remake is not expected to release this year, and that it might launch next year, 2026. But it's not 100% confirming that it's not releasing this year, it's just not expected. It means we still do have a possibility of it coming out this year, but it's probably not that likely. I suppose it does make some sense if the game is still in active development, because you got to finish development, and then you got to polish the game, and eventually get it to like the gold status and all of the shit, and then it gets close to wanting to release, right? And they got to go through the marketing cycle for the game and all the other shit too. You see some people kind of glossing over the fact that it gives us an update on the Tactics Remaster, because the person asks about the 9 Remake and the Tactics Remaster, and he says both are in active development, which I understand, because the 9 Remake is, for me, a lot more interesting than the Tactics Remaster, because what is the 9 Remake? Like, I know what I'm getting from a Tactics Remaster. Final Fantasy IX for me is, my third favorite Final Fantasy game of all time. It's one of my favorite games of all time, so I'm significantly more interested in that project than the Remaster of Tactics. Also, in regards to Midori and the Tactics Remaster, I don't recall if we ever got any development updates in terms of like how far along it was. Like, is development complete? Is it still in active development? I don't remember that. And I guess at this point, who knows how fucking relevant his info ever was. This might be the first time, at least that I can think of right now, that we've had some level of a development update on Tactics, like how far along it is. It's still in active development, which is kind of vague, but at least it tells us something. This person further goes on to ask, so for Final Fantasy Tactics, the release is 2025, to which he says, not that I've heard. And they further say, a very long development time for a simple remaster, to which Nate says, just because I haven't heard it, doesn't mean it's not coming this year, to be clear. I simply don't have a timeline of release on the game at the moment. There is the possibility that we could get the Tactics Remaster this year, it's just, he doesn't have a timeline currently, right? So that's at least exciting, maybe we could get that this year, and then maybe the 9 Remake next year. You kind of got to agree with the guy replying to Nate, just because, it is a remaster. Now, he does say it's a simple remaster, which I don't know if we know that that's the case. Maybe there's an insider somewhere that has said that that's all it is just a simple remaster, but it could be like a really high-end remaster, like something beyond what we're expecting. Maybe something kind of on par with like Crisis Core Reunion, where it's like a complete visual overhaul, but to also update mechanics of the game and stuff, add a lot to it. But again, at the same time, it is a remaster of a game, right? So it's like, how long does development take? Because the NVIDIA leak, we're getting close. As time goes on, when we get to September of this year, it'll be 4 years old that the NVIDIA leak happened. And it's like, okay, when something's a part of the NVIDIA leak, like how far along was it in development at the time? Because I know some things were revealed like pretty soon after the leak, right? So like at the time that the NVIDIA leak happened, like how far along was development on 9 Remake? How far along was development on the Tactics Remaster? And like what has taken so long? Because we're starting to kind of get into Final Fantasy VII Remake territory. Now, neither of these games have been confirmed by Square Enix at any point, right? But Final Fantasy VII Remake was revealed in 2015, and we got a little bit after that, right? We got another trailer at the end of 2015, and I think a little bit of something in like 2016 or 2017. But for the most part, it was silence from like 2015 all the way until 2019, right? With like the re-reveal and kind of the remarketing. That's kind of what we're getting to now, with like a 4-year time gap from the NVIDIA leak into these games, right? Like these games that, pretty much every insider out there that's relevant has confirmed they exist. It's just Square Enix hasn't, really talked about them ever or addressed them ever, other than Yoshida, who's like talked about the 9 remake and trying to say, hey, that'd be a great idea. Hey, this is how many games it'd probably be, a multi-part release. My team's not making it, and he's also talked about the Tactics series, I guess, and talked about there should be another game in the series, right? I think it's about all he's ever touched on with that, other than Yoshida kind of addressing those, games or whatever. We haven't had anything from Square Enix themselves. It's like, fuck are we doing? Like, what are we doing, man? For me personally, it's like as time goes on, the hype is dying down, and that's not even Square Enix's fault because it was a part of a leak, right? As far as they're aware, we shouldn't even know this thing exists. But the fact that we do know it exists, it's like the further we get along, it's like I almost want it to be more like the 7 remake, because otherwise, what are we waiting for? Because I have said for quite a while on the channel that I don't really care if they want to do like a visual enhancement sort of thing, or if they want to go the route of 7 remake and like completely overhaul the game and expand locations and regions and add more things to do in the world, all that other shit. Like, I'm fine with either of those, but like as time goes on, it's taking longer and longer. I'm like, I kind of want the latter of those two. Anyways, that is enough of me bitching about the 9 remake. You guys have heard it before on the channel plenty of times at this point, but I mean, goddamn, son of a bitch, where is it? But that'll be pretty much the video, my dudes. Anytime there's anything kind of relevant about this game that we can talk about, we'll talk about it on the channel. I don't go around chasing every little leak and rumor. If it's from like a substantial source, I usually want to cover it. So in the future, if there's any other updates, whether it's from, NateTheHate or anybody else out there that has any kind of insider knowledge regarding the 9 remake, we'll cover that shit for sure. Anyways, that's the video. Subscribe to the channel if you guys are new. Social networks in the description below. Follow me on Twitter, @DaveYT. That's it. Bye.
Used to care what people thought, but now I care more, and nobody out here's got it figured out. So therefore I've lost all hope of a happy ending, depending on whether or not it's worth it. So insecure, no one's perfect, we spend it with no shame, we blow that like Coltrane, we in here like Low Gain, or leave it like Cobain.